Okay, so if you haven't ever seen Ask a White Guy or Ask a Black Guy or Ask a Mexican Guy, this is something that we've done on YouTube for a very long time. It gives you the opportunity to ask respectfully a question of somebody who is from a different culture or lifestyle from you. So we've had white guys, Jewish guys, black guys, Asian guys. This is our second gay guy. It's our first black gay guy. And we've had, and he's got those rainbow flag leg warmers on.
It just came from a business meeting.
The screen is sideways because Periscope has a new update. You have to download it in order to get this broadcast. He's cute though. And that's one.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I'm sure he's talking about George.
I know.
And Big Irish J is my friend, and George is a guest in my home. So
and my friend.
And Irish J's friend. And so we will be respectful to George. You can ask questions, but there won't be any name calling, no disrespect, no rudeness. And we do like to keep the commentary clean. So I will block you if you disrespect George.
What if they did all the name calling, but it was all at me?
I'll still block him.
That fat white boy on the screen.
I will dispute. You are my friend.
I know.
And you can't learn about anybody if you already are angry and being vicious and disrespectful. This is, the block ministry is here. I can reach the phone. Don't
block ministry, is that what they said?
Yeah.
Block ministry.
So we've got 4 people who have been blocked. Guy needs gal said, "What's up, Jay?" She's from YouTube. Oh, and if you don't know, we'll talk about this, but Big Irish J loves black women, so
George's hair is everything.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
All right, so we're going to get started. If you have a question from George, go ahead and throw it in the comments now. We're going to get started.
Did you title this?
Ask a Gay Guy.
Oh, okay, perfect.
With George Blake.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if somebody came late if they would know what's going on.
Okay, first question, George. How hard was it to tell your family when the black community fears homosexuality?
I was lucky my family told me. They were like, you wake up every morning, you're doing like this. And I didn't have any hair then, so it was pretty obvious.
You're just doing
it's
this?
Nice when they tell you. You know what I mean?
How old were you? How old were you when this happened?
I was probably like 5 or 6 years old when my mother first started wondering about what was going on with me. Yeah, and my dad, I'll tell you, my dad's any port in a storm, so chances are he had an encounter or two. This is genetic, people. I'm a gold card. That's all I can say.
What does that mean?
That means that it comes down the family line. Some people get the ability to play music from their fathers, and some people, I can't say that part.
Yeah. So that's a question a lot of people have. It might not be in there. Do you think you were born gay? Or what's the age-old question? Are you born gay or do you turn gay?
I pretty much vogued from the vagina. So I'm pretty sure
Are your kids here?
that this
they're
thing
way on the other side.
there at the
Door
very
closed.
beginning. In fact, when I was a little kid, I didn't know that you could be a man and grow up and marry a man because all we ever saw was men marrying women. So when I was about 3, I thought I would grow up and turn into a woman. Because,
Really?
Because I thought that that's what happened. Like, oh, I'm a boy now, but I guess because I'm going to marry a guy.
Like a butterfly.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not transgender, and I support transgender people, but I began to realize, the stuff I've got works pretty well with certain guys, so hey.
We're getting a lot of questions that says, is your father gay or bisexual?
He's bisexual. He doesn't like the word. I have a sister who says she's bi-curious, but my thing is you can't say you're curious after curiosity eats your cat, so I don't know about that.
He doesn't like what word? Father?
Bisexual. He really doesn't like that
Wait,
word.
was he married or were they...
That was part of the reason they got divorced.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was 1973. I was born in 71, so they didn't last very long.
So how did that happen? Do you remember any of that, or that was before you remember that?
I don't remember it, and my father never really said anything to me about it until I was about 22 years old. I went to stay with him for a weekend, and he said, "Let me tell you my life story," and I had to leave the next day. It was a lot of information, and I also didn't feel like I felt like he could have supported me more growing up and encouraged me more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He could have told me what bars to go to.
Do you still talk to him?
Oh, yeah, we talk all the time.
Okay, great. I had a good question and I missed it. Are you big into church? If so, how does being gay conflict with that?
Well, I was...
Oh, do you want kids was the question. We'll answer that afterwards. So let's answer the church question.
I don't want kids. I used to think I did a few years ago, but... actually, I'm with the same guy for about 11, 12 years now. And
white guy.
White guy.
Is he a white guy?
Yeah. I think my parents are more happy that he's white than I'm gay. I think that's what that's what won them over. They're like, yes, take down the white man. And I can successfully say I have brought the white man to his knees. I've done it single-handedly.
What was the other question?
Kids.
Oh, about church.
Church.
About church.
Well, you know, I really was very, very devout for a long time, and I used to go to church about 4 or 5 times a week growing up. But it was really the atmosphere in the church of homophobia and isolation that caused me to leave. I mean, my belief system is still very much there,
Right.
but I couldn't be a part of an organization that made me feel like I was constantly in a state of sin and that there was no grace, that there was no love, that God's heart was closed to me.
Wow. Is there anything this is just my question. Is there anything the church could have done or treated you? Is there a way the church could have treated you that would have made you feel like you were welcome at the church?
You know, I don't think so.
Part B, did the actions of the church push you out of the church?
It was the actions of the church. I mean, I remember once the pastor of the church actually said, "We're going to call a ban for homosexuality and masturbation," and I was like, "You're leaving me no choices here." Like that was one thing. And the other thing is, I had an exorcism performed on me when I was 18.
What? Really?
Yeah, to get rid of my gay demon. I don't know if you can tell, but it worked. It worked. And there was, you know, it was an emotional experience. I called my best friend who was also gay. We've been friends for 10 years since we were little kids. And we were out to each other, and told him that we could no longer be friends because, like, God had delivered me and I wasn't gay anymore. And it was,
oh my God, did you hear that? I'm not gay no more.
Yes,
I am delivered.
That was me. I was delivered too.
So for how long did that last after the
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. I guess it didn't take. But I don't think it was about whether it really took or not. I think for me, it just showed me that while people have really good intentions sometimes and that they hope the best for you, what they hope is their version of the best for you, not necessarily who you are. And I think that to me, being gay saved my life. I grew up in Baltimore City. As you know, unless you're bulletproof, you're not going to last very long.
Right.
And being gay put me in a segment of that population that wasn't into the violence, that wasn't into so many of those things. So my world opened up, and it really changed me.
That's interesting. I've always thought, like, here's the thing I struggle with being a Christian in a church. Gay people are like, it's the only thing where people want to, like, fix you immediately. And I've always thought, like, because I've had, like, family members and friends who have been, like, openly any other sin. I've had, you know, family members who've been addicted to drugs, who, you know, fornicating, adultery, alcoholism, whatever. And we can love pretty much anybody else through that, except gay people. Like you see, like we let people smoke cigarettes and, you know, whatever.
Right outside the church.
Right outside the church.
Defile the temple, then go into the temple.
Right. But gay people, we're just like, nope. That's the one thing where we have a difficult. And honestly, George, I grew up in the same way. Like, there's probably 10 years ago, I would not have been able to have this conversation with you. I would have been like, ain't no gay people coming to my house, blah, blah, blah. But what happened, and it's not even that anybody in my family was gay. What happened is, when my mind really changed, is when I had kids. When I had a child and I, like, first held him, I was just like, there's no way I could, like, because, you know, like, there's a lot of people who kick their kids out and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just looking at my son, my first son, and I was like, there's no way I could do anything that would, like, push him away.
Yeah.
And that's when I first understood unconditional love.
Yeah.
And that was like, man, I really love this. He hadn't done anything. He was just, like, 5 minutes old. And I was just like, man.
Well, I think the thing is, for both my parents really, really love me. I mean, I would say, like, my father more than loves me. He, like, adores me. He doesn't even hear me when I'm talking. He just looks at me like this the whole time. So I have their unconditional love. That always made me feel good about being myself, regardless of what my mother's religious compunctions may have been, or the religious environment that I grew up in. It just, for me, it's about really self-love. And the only way that you really get to self-love is to take yourself with all of the idiosyncrasies that you have. So, you know what? This is divinely who I am in this moment. I may not always be this person, but in this moment, I have to love myself.
Okay. This hurting my neck trying to be able to block people and listen to you. Okay,
I got a question, but let's take some off
you go ahead.
No. Take some off
let's take another one.
You can't go back and look at them.
No. Yeah. Do you think being gay is a sin?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't, because what people base that on often, and I know this because, like I said, I was very devout. I had a strong concordance with the Greek and the Chaldean and the Hebrew and the Aramaic in it that broke every single thing down. And the book of Leviticus is really dedicated to Levites. Levites were the priesthood within the Hebrew community. So what that was supposed to be is instructions for people that were specifically in the priesthood.
That's where the tattoo comes from. Don't get tattoos.
Right.
And
It
don't
was so
shave
that
your
you
beard.
could delineate a priest from anyone else. But
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Look at George dropping knowledge.
No, I studied that. I studied that whole book because I used to teach Bible study. I was a teen pastor, and one of the kids, I was like, ask anything, and they were like, can we get tattoos? So I went to study to be like to prove to them that they couldn't get tattoos, and then I started researching, and I was like, I was reading this out of context because. After tattoos, it's like don't shave your beard, don't wear clothes of any two things. But I want you to finish that thought because I'm learning
it
too.
says so many things in those books, in the Pentateuch, in those first 5 books of the Bible. It says things like if your daughter is defiled by a man, which means essentially that she's raped, that she has to marry that man, that he becomes her property. How many people would let their daughter who's been raped go and marry or live with the guy that raped them?
Wow.
And really, and then they'll say, well, but eating shellfish and wearing clothing of mixed fabrics or any of the number of other sins that are listed in Leviticus are all the Old Testament.
Right.
They'll say that so that they can get away with, people will say that so they can get away with their own stuff.
Right.
And then it's supposed to be, well, Jesus came to fulfill the law
right.
so that we weren't under the law anymore. And yet we have preachers and pastors and evangelists constantly trying to make people live under the law. And to them I say, you are a Pharisee, and they should know what a Pharisee is. They were the carriers of the law.
Right.
And they were the ones that doggedly pursued Jesus, who said, get away from me with your Pharisaical nature.
I didn't know you were Bible-based.
Breaking it down. I love it.
Oh my God.
Well, you know what, part of it is that was what empowered me. I read the Bible enough that I could read between the lines, and that's really what it's about, is how does this apply to my life? Right. When I was leaving the church, my pastor, really sweet woman, Pastor Jessie Knox, and I sat down and we cried together. And she said, I feel like you're going to leave because people aren't making you feel welcome. And she said, when I became saved, my best friend who was gay became saved, and he ended up leaving because they wouldn't accept him.
Wow.
And she said, so I understand, as long as you take God with you, I can't cast you out. I can't condemn you.
Right.
I can't point a finger at you. Just keep your relationship with God sanctified within yourself.
Right.
And you've got enough. And to me, that's enough.
Right, right.
You know?
And there's a taboo underlining, especially in the black church. I don't know as much about other churches as I do about the black church, but there's a taboo underlining that there's a lot of people in ministerial positions, especially in the music department, that have homosexuality tendency. One of my favorite artists, Tone, have you ever heard of Tone?
Yes. Yeah.
Tone had this whole big thing where he came out and he had been,
for him.
Yeah, he had been molested when he was 6, and he was cussing in music, and people were just like, what? You know, so, but when and it's funny, he has a song called Make Me Over, and I had always listened to it, but after he came out, the song says, you know my other side, I can no longer hide, and I don't know if that's what he was writing about, but I was just like, you think so?
I think so. I think because people really want to be honest and they want to be truthful, and churches often make people act like there's no such thing as sexuality outside of the marriage bed, and we know what world we live in.
Right.
Honestly, and this may be controversial to some of you out there, I really believe churches should be teaching about sexuality because it's also a blessing, it's also a sacrament, so that we aren't reckless with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that you won't have sex before marriage or in between marriage or after marriage or what have you, but at least you'll have some sense of a spiritual connection to it, and you won't feel like you've got to do it in the dark. Yeah. And as far as those
because children's church be full, George.
Right.
Children's church be full, and it don't be as many weddings.
That's
there be baby showers every day.
I've known a lot of pastors over the years, and of course musical directors who were gay, and it bothered me because they would say things like they practice homosexuality. Let me tell you, I don't practice. I'm good at it now.
You're an all-star.
Practice.
You're a professional.
Pretty damn perfect.
Perennial all-star.
So,
did you have a question, Jay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But we should let people know too that they shouldn't present their questions until you're looking, right?
Yeah. I want to ask.
Scrolling by.
This is really difficult for me because I'm really interested in listening, and we've never done this live. So previously, we've always had the questions on Instagram to read from, but this is our first time live, so I'm learning and listening to George, and then coming back for questions. So
yeah, you should do it where you're like, okay, present your question.
Okay, yeah. So now you have
I'll ask mine.
Let Jay ask your question, and I'll read for the next question.
No, I'm curious is it your husband or just your boyfriend?
Just a boyfriend. We're gonna live in sin.
Okay, good enough. And he's white. What I'm curious is, I've known of in straight relationships, there's a lot of black people that don't approve of black people dating white people. So in the gay community, gay black dudes, will they look down at you like, why are you dating that white devil?
I'll tell you, like, when I first met Tom, because of course his name is Tom, because we don't name our people Tom. When I first met him, I was hanging with a group of other black gay guys. We were all like sort of upperly mobile, college educated, all that stuff.
Right.
And I told them that I was interested in him, and they said, well, you know, like, you got to find a nice brother. And I said, I've been out for 15 years. I have really, like, I had to sign out.
Is there no good black men on either side? But black women are always complaining that there's no good.
There are.
There's no good black men on either side. That's unfair, guys.
Hilarious.
I wanted someone that would love, care about me, and want a relationship with me. And I had not had that experience. It didn't mean it wasn't happening to friends of mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some friends with 2 or 3 boyfriends at one time.
Yeah.
But that just wasn't my experience. And so I said to them, which bothered them, I'm swearing off only dating black men for 18 months. And I'm just going to date everybody and see what's out there for me. And then Tom came along. I was there, actually that night, I knew that we were supposed to be together. The night I knew we were supposed to be together, I had just come from a date with a former NFL player. So he was
wide receiver,
sexy, muscular, wealthy, all that. Told me he wanted me to live in one of his houses, which made me wonder who lived in the other houses, but wanted me to like take care of me, all that shit. And after that date, with supposedly the best I could find, I went home and called Tom to see how he was doing. And that was the night I realized that's the one. Because he's on my mind, and I care about him. I don't want just someone to just care about me.
Wow. Real quick, if you want to share this with your followers, tap the man and click share. I saw one of my friends say people are mad. Of course. It's really hard for Christians to have open dialogue with anybody who doesn't agree exactly. And this is even between the church. When I was growing up apostolic, I would have to argue with Kojic people. You know,
apostolic,
who's saved,
friends.
Who's not saved.
Right.
So we love
speaking in tongues,
once saved, always saved, Jesus only, grace. We just love to argue. We don't really love to listen and learn as much as we love to argue.
Right.
I, on the other hand, love to listen and learn so I can understand people. I feel like you can't potentially witness to somebody if you can't first have a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is that sexuality, period, is personal.
Right.
It's the most personal part of you. It's the one thing you don't have to tell anybody about.
Yeah.
And the idea of someone being gay makes other people think about what you do in bed. And when they think about what you do in bed, they think of themselves doing it.
Right.
And they don't like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what they're really projecting is their own feelings about how they would interact with homosexuality or bisexuality on you. There's a great quote by Quentin Crisp. I don't know if you know him, but I love him. And he says, people act like they'll say to you, I don't like peas, so I don't eat them. Because if I ate them and I would like them, that's why I don't eat them. And that's the thinking in the mind. It's, well, you know, you're doing this thing. I mean, I was Mr. Morgan State University.
Wow.
Which was an achievement, all-black college, voted in by a landslide.
Yeah.
And I remember...
And you were openly gay at this time?
I was openly myself.
Okay.
I let
people... So people knew.
Yeah, people knew.
They're like, it's George.
Yeah, like I wasn't grabbing ass or anything on campus. And I wore shorts like this. You should see it. I was famous for a short, but if you got the legs, people, that's all I'm saying. So one guy actually in the student government office pulled me up one day and said, you know, I want to know what your sexuality is. And I said, but you don't. Because if you thought that I was heterosexual, you wouldn't ask.
Oh,
and if you thought that I was bisexual, you thought there'd be a chance.
Right.
So what you really want to know is if I'm homosexual, specifically an anal bottom,
right.
so that you can say that, and then I'm not man enough to have this position. But I was voted in by all of you, and it didn't matter what I was doing or not doing in bed.
Right.
And then I said to him, and by the way, I don't think about what you do when
right.
I leave campus. Maybe you should ask yourself why you are thinking about me having sex with men. Because that's your shit.
Wow.
I just go, no, that's your shit.
We
like to use clean language, George, for the people.
Scott.
For the record, I don't even know if you guys, what you're saying at the time so far because there's so many comments. If you're just tuning in or if you share this to your followers, this is George Blake. This is Big Irish J. This is something I call Ask a Gay Guy. It's something I've done on YouTube for very long. It's first coming to Periscope because it's like the perfect venue for it. You get to ask questions and then we answer, okay? So if you just got shared to the broadcast, we're asking George respectful questions about his life and gayness and homosexuality and all that stuff. And George grew up in the black church. He was a devout Christian. Okay, I'm going to look for the next question. I'm sorry. And Scott Williams shared that, and that means a lot to me because Scott...
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, Scott Williams, people are tripping because he shared. Scott is a preacher and pastor, or he used to be a pastor, and he shared. And if you are new to the broadcast, I'm a Christian. George grew up Christian. Big Irish J, we're working on him still.
I went to a black church.
He went to a black church when he grew up. It was called Maranatha Baptist.
Portland, Oregon.
All black church, so we are working on him diligently. And I want people to have the opportunity to ask respectfully a question to someone who's outside of their culture or lifestyle. We usually ask Jay, and we'll be asking Jay in the next broadcast, but we have George Blake, who is an openly gay black man, and we're asking him questions. You know why also this is interesting to me? More and more of my family and friends are coming out gay. Mm-hmm. And it's to me, it's much easier to deal with gayness as a theory and when it's somebody you don't know. Mm-hmm. But when it's someone you've loved for 20 years or 30 years, who's always been your uncle, your aunt, your dad, your grandma, your cousin.
Wait, what?
No. It's not as easy in theory to say all the things that you would say when it's someone you love. When it's someone you don't know, it's easy to say, oh, they could never be in my house. Yeah, but when it's Thanksgiving and your aunt wasn't gay last time, or your uncle wasn't gay last cousin, your cousin wasn't gay last Thanksgiving, now you
pass them the potatoes and
right. It's really difficult for you to say my family member who I known, or I can't eat with you. Like, this is my family member. This is who I've known in my life. Or I've got friends who I've known since high school or just coming out as gay, and like, I've known you for 15 years. We've been friends. We've loved each other. You watched my kids. You picked them up from, you know what I mean? You were there when they were born. Yeah. Now I'm just supposed to push you away? Like, it's very difficult. All right, so we're going to get another question. Let's see. We're looking now. I'm sorry. We're talking. What about the New Testament in Corinthians and Timothy? What does he think about the New Testament? Gayness equals sin.
Well, what I think about the New Testament is that it, like any other book in the Bible, is supposed to be a guide. And I think it's when we get litigious about those things and we hold them over other people's heads so that we can feel superior about them. Well, this is what's in this scripture. Well, you really don't want that turned around on you. If we really want to talk about scripture, what about Jesus saying to people, stop worrying about the mote in your brother's eye and worry about the log in your own? But we don't do that because somehow passing judgment makes us feel correct. We also know we're not supposed to pass judgment. Right. So the thing is this, we can Bible beat each other back and forth. I can show you some things that maybe you would disagree with. I don't think you would enslave your daughter. Jesus actually says nothing about same-sex marriage, although you might want to read the story of the centurion and the young man that he supposedly loved that he asked Jesus to resurrect. So you might want to ask yourself what that situation is.
Hold on, this is too much to get into at one time. Jake, can you take the next question? Let me check.
Look, let me get over here. What's it say? How disgusting is this seeing my face like this? The belching from the... What? Let me get my glasses. I'm too old for this, George. Here, you know, we'll wait till... I got a question for you. You can see one?
Something about I'm not Christian anymore. You know what? I'm not AME anymore. I'm not Baptist anymore. I'm not... faith anymore. I'm not doing those things because those are organizations. And the Word of God is not about organizations. Those are man-made constructs so that you will go and you will contribute to their building fund. But my sense of spirituality and my connection to the God that I grew up with is very much there. Whether you want me to label myself one thing or another, that's where we get into trouble, folks. You want to label because then you can say it's this or it's that. And I understand. What you really want to do is you want to put it in a box. You want to put a label on it so that you can easily identify it. But how many of us are 100% of anything? Most of us are mixtures of various cultures and experiences. So instead of looking at someone and wondering about his religion or his Christianity so that you can then say that it's correct, maybe you should ask yourself why there are 34,000 kinds of Christianity in the United States, 34,000 denominations. Look it up yourself. So then what is Christian? Or should we just be giving each other the space to love and support each other when there's really only one commandment, which is love your neighbor as yourself? Where's the love? We have plenty of judgment, but we don't seem to have a lot of love.
I feel like I'm at church right now. Preach, George.
I didn't even mean for this to go this direction, but hey, if it goes this direction, great. I understand it because people need their religion to make them feel good. But it's not your religion. Religion is not the thing. Because what about the scripture that says you have a form of godliness that you deny the power thereof? That's what you're doing when you're practicing a religion and your pastor's telling you what's true rather than examining the word for itself and reading it by the Spirit rather than by the letter of the law.
I didn't know you grew up in the church, so this
I
is
grew
like
up
fascinating.
Deep in the church.
What was the thing you were saying way back about centurions and?
Well, there actually is a story in the New Testament in which Jesus is besought by a centurion, which is a Roman guard. And if you know anything about the Romans and the Greeks, Roman guards often had relationships with young men, which were sanctioned by the state until that young man reached maturity. This centurion asked Jesus to resurrect his page, for lack of a better term, or his ward, and cries about it and says how much he loves it, and Jesus recognizes the love and then resurrects him. So my thing is that, are we disguising the story? Because we also know that King James Version means two things. It's King James and it's a version. So it's not the Aramaic and it's not the Chaldean or the Hebrew from which that language originates. So we might want to give it a little bit of...
I never thought about that. I've heard that story and I just thought it was his brand.
But think about it. Even the word manger does not appear in Hebrew scripture. There's no such thing as a manger. The word is actually cave. Jesus was born in a cave. But manger sounds nice and sweet with little horses and sweet hay, and everybody was nice. You're talking about the Savior of the world coming into the most dire of circumstances. That's the power of Jesus being born in a complete and utter squalor, yet being the Son of God. It's not about coming down from the heavens in a brand new Escalade. That's what we keep expecting.
Right.
But that's not what it's supposed to be about. If we don't give room for that. Even passages in the Bible, in Acts, that says that women served men. It actually, in the Chaldean, in the Hebrew, and the Greek says minister to men. But because men did not women to be ministers in the church and wanted to deny them their pastorship and their evangelism, they changed the word of minister to servant. Really, no, this is my thing. Now, I love and respect you all. And I respect that you have your religious views and all of that. And yet I encourage you to dig deeper, to actually read it for what it is, and not for what someone told you it was.
Right. Study to show thyself approved.
Exactly.
Real quick, if somebody's being disrespectful, I can't catch them all. You can block them on your own, and you won't see them in your feed, and then I can see them. And I just saw a question that I wanted to ask, but I forgot about that. If you're just tuning in, we are talking to George Blake, who is a gay black man who grew up in the church, and we're doing Ask a Gay Guy. Any question you want to ask him that's respectful, we will ask him, and we're doing Ask a White Guy with Big Irish J right after this. Any one question you want to ask about white people you don't know. And I won't block you for being ignorant, because ignorance really means you don't know.
You just don't know.
So if you're asking a question that you just generally don't know the answer to, that's not worth a block. If you're being disrespectful, I saw somebody call George Milli Vanilli.
Oh no, this is all real. See, Milli Vanilli, theirs wasn't real. We grew this.
Yeah. So if you're disrespectful to a guest in my home, I will block you. So, and you shouldn't be. You should take this as an opportunity to learn, because most of the time we don't talk to these people in church anyway.
People.
Gay people. That's what I meant.
These people. That's what I say about black people. What?
All right. Here we go.
I got a question when you're done.
Okay, I saw this question. What are the thoughts about the feminization of black men?
I think personally, I think it's a bit of a misnomer. I think we look too much simply to black men, and we say that this is only happening to black men. I think if we look at the broader society, we actually see most men have adopted, I wouldn't say feminization, but I would say there's more gender neutrality with it. I remember there was a lot of controversy about what Dave Chappelle and some comedians had said about, well, they're trying to make black comedians look feminine, but what about Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire, or Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie, or Patrick Swayze and Tu Wong Fu? This is not just a black thing. I think this is the way the society has gone. Men no longer do the alpha male thing. I think some of that should stay, but I think that it has been oppressive to minority groups and particularly to women. So men have had to change the way that they do things. Now, some might say that's feminization, but the truth is that it's happened over time and very progressively. I'm also an English professor, and one of the things my students are talking about this semester is gender identity. In the 1980s, when I was a teenager, one earring meant you were gay.
Yeah.
Half
right
the
here.
NFL,
Right here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right here. And now half the NFL has 2 diamond earrings. In the 1980s, rock stars were teasing their hair up, wearing a full face of makeup, and they had more women than you could name. So it's really about what is happening societally at that time, what we consider feminine or not feminine. I think that some men could use a little more balls nowadays, but it's also about fitting into a society in which women have become more equal. So are women becoming masculine?
Here's a good question, George. There's two questions. One, what do you do for a living? You answer your English for her. Do you do stand-up as well?
I do stand-up. I produce a comedy show called George's Gluten-Free Comedy. Check it out. And I
so you're vegan too?
No.
Oh, I was about to say. Now that I can't test. Get out. That I want. We got them ribs on that grill, George. And them ribs gonna be on that grill.
That's the name of the show, right?
Okay.
But I've been an English professor for almost 20 years now.
Okay.
And on the university level, community college level, and I also am a writing coach for people that write books.
Okay. I saw a question and it reminded me of a lot of what I thought as a young person in the church. Does having a sexual encounter early make you gay? I think it was something like that. But that's what I kind of always thought. Like if you were molested when you were young, that's why you were gay, either by a man or a woman.
Well, I'll say that's also a misconstrued idea. It's a bit of a misnomer. I have lots of friends who are gay who never had that experience. I'll put myself out there and I'll tell my story. Here you go. Okay. I was molested when I was 3 years old by a woman. Let that sit with you. I was molested again at 6 years old by a man. I was molested again at 8 years old by a woman. I was molested again at 11 years old by a man. What does that mean? What that means is what happened to me was wrong, was cruel, was inhumane, was undeserved, but it didn't shape my sexuality at all. No more than anybody having one experience makes them any particular thing. When I was growing up, a lot of little neighborhood boys and I would fool around. It didn't make them gay. Right. They grew up, they married women, they loved women, they had an experience. But an experience doesn't have to define you.
Right.
I think what can happen is you might identify with an experience. I didn't identify my gayness with anything that happened because otherwise I would have been extremely heterosexual since the first molester I had was a woman.
Right. That's interesting because that's what I thought always when we grew up. The last time we had a gay person on here, Justin, he said he grew up like a regular boy playing football, trucks, fighting. Jordan. And he was like, I fought, I bled, I was a bully. And then, at 14, I experimented with kissing. And then that's when he started to like figure out who he was. So it's not the same. It's not going to be the same for anyone.
And the truth is, I would say I'm a gold card, and that's funny, but in the gay community, a gold card means you've never had sex with a woman. I had sex with quite a few girls growing up, teenager, and a couple of women. So it wasn't that wasn't great. It was great, but it really was defining things like the smell of women and breasts and the way women sound when they have sex that made me know this was not, that I did not connect to that. And so I knew very clearly what my sexuality was. I experimented to try to get rid of my homosexuality because I was like, maybe I'll just have sex with women and something will click in my head. But what clicked in my head was you are decidedly gay.
Right. If you miss a lot of the questions I'm saying, I'm not answering because we answered them earlier in the broadcast. So if you want to watch the replay when we're done, you can, and you'll see your answers up there.
Should I ask my question or you want to take one?
Go ahead, Jay.
I feel bad because I see people scrolling, or things scroll by. All right. You want to take one, George?
How does a guy sound during sex? He sounds like a man, and that's what I want him to sound like.
That's not kind of cool.
I want a deep voice.
You think he's going to sound like...
I'm not going to say what I want him to say, but women just... I mean, you can watch a pornography video, and you can tell...
No, don't watch it.
A man and a woman. So it's not that you can't tell the difference. It's really those are the things. It's the smell, it's the sound, it's the manliness. That's the thing that gay men are attracted to.
All right, here's my question. Okay. All right. You mentioned earlier about when you were at Morgan State and the guy asked you, how did you say he asked you?
What's my sexuality?
Okay. Now, and I understand what you're saying. You feel like he was asking you from a point so he can judge you or whatever, right?
Of course.
Now, I actually wrote a joke about this that I haven't worked out, but how, is there a way or a way that you prefer that, like if I have somebody that's a friend that maybe I think he's gay, but I'm not sure, I want to know, not because I want to judge him, but then the conversation can be curtailed to, like, I don't want to be out and be like, hey, check out that hot chick, if I know that, I'd rather be like, hey, I know that's the kind of guy you're attracted to, is that your type or whatever?
Well, the truth is, I check out hot women, because a beautiful woman is a beautiful woman. I think that, I have eyes. I know what a beautiful woman looks like. Right. I looked at Kim Kardashian's rump, too, because I'm a black man. Big butts make me feel safe. So it's not like you miss it. You know what I mean? Right. It's just like when women look at other women and they say she's beautiful or look at her figure or she's got a great body. They don't want to be with her. Right. But you can appreciate it. So I think that your friend would still look. And I think the idea that you want to know what he does on some level is about judgment and on some level is about trying to understand him. so that you can then operate with him. But why not just point to the guy and say that's a good-looking guy? It doesn't make you gay to say that a man is good-looking. I hate it when men are like, I can't tell a good-looking guy. Yes, you can. Because if you're talking to a chick, and because the thing is, if you're a guy out and you're out with a girl and you're trying to hit on her, and up walks, what was his name? Jeremy Meeks, the guy in prison that every woman was going crazy for with the blue eyes. And he walks up, you know you've been outclassed because you know that he's a good-looking man.
Right.
So
I was walking down the street.
Like you don't see it.
Yes, like 3 days ago in Culver City, and Boris Kojo was in front of me, and I was just like, I get it.
Right.
I get it, guys. Most guys are like, who he think he is? He probably get all the girls. Like, that's what we say. And I was just like, dang, Boris, he was tall. I was just like...
That's similar to when women see an attractive woman and say, she thinks she's cute.
Yeah.
What you mean is you think she's cute, and you can't handle it.
Right. We only got about 15 minutes because we got to do Jay, and I got to go to the barbershop. So, 15 minutes.
And get some lotion.
I'm not going to the barbershop.
Kev, somebody asked me my beliefs on homosexuality. I've talked about that at length in YouTube. This is for questions for George.
What we got?
I don't want to think about people having sex, straight or gay.
That's it, exactly.
How about that? How about we all stop thinking about what kind of sex everybody's having? Then you can't out people like they do celebrities. Like, he's gay, that person's gay, she does this. Why are we even concerned with it? The fact of the matter is, I'm a loving, caring person. People that I have met very few people in this lifetime of mine that have said that I am unkind or that they did not like me. They may not like what I do, but they will always respect me because I'm a respectful person. Let's live like that in this world.
Yeah, it's okay. I know some people don't know me and they're just asking. I wasn't trying to be rude. I just want to spend as much time hearing from George. I can talk about this at any time. Somebody said, do gay men go to heaven? There were 2 questions back to back about, do you believe in heaven or hell? And do gay men go to heaven? You just speak on your beliefs on that.
I'm not a literalist about those kinds of things. I think we know a little more about how things operate in the world and in this particular solar system. I don't know if heaven is another dimension. I would say my experience in the church would tell me that yes, everyone who would be a believer would go to heaven. And because even in, I can't remember exactly the book, but it does say the only one that will be lost is the son of perdition. And the son of perdition is that person that holds unbelief, who's of a reprobate mind. So that would mean any gay person who loves God, who respects the will of God, who follows that, tries to be a good individual, loves his neighbor as himself. Why would you be denied that? Why would God be the gay police? If that was the case, then it would be we would know right away. There would be, I don't think God's playing a game of mystery with us or a shell game about who gets into heaven and who doesn't.
Right.
As far as hell, I'm not a literalist, and I know that hell is a term that means either Gehenna, which is the fire pits where they used to burn trash in Israel. That's one of those representations. The other one is Sheol, which means the grave, and the other hell means the absence of God. So I believe that we can be experiencing that right now. I don't get into judgment because heaven and hell also makes us judge people.
Yeah.
And it makes us judge ourselves.
Right.
And if we've been given life by a creator that loves us from before we were even formed in our mother's womb, how could we get anything other than the best of that experience?
Right. And for the record, guys, the reason I don't answer questions that much in these because this is not about me. This is not about my belief. It's about the guests. So when we had the Jewish guy on, we want to learn about you. Yeah. So we don't want to ask questions about me. So we got about 13 minutes left.
13 minutes.
How do you follow the will of God when you contradict it? Look like
let me ask you this question. How do you follow the will of God when you defile your temple by putting things into your body that are not healthy for your body? How do you follow the will of God when you speak ill of your parents? How do you follow the will of God when you lie, when you cheat? We are all human beings. We are made to be frail and to have faults. We are made that way. Following the will of God is not living perfect, but if you are that individual who is living a spot-free, perfect life, then please, you should have the ability to come right through this phone and bless all of us. So it's not about because you do one thing, you can't do another thing. I know men that cheat on their wives, and the pastor of the church will allow that man to get divorced and marry the woman that he's been cheating with, and supposedly that's sanctified. So some things are forgivable, other things are not.
The thing that's hurting me is that George is talking things that are very true. Some of the beliefs, I disagree with some of the things you're saying, but things like that, it's so true. And I see it. I have friends in my life, devout Christians, who can have all kinds of sex, sin, and just with a clear mind really hate gay people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, you are sinning every single day.
We sin by thought, word, and deed. That is what the Bible says. So if it's as simple as a thought, if a thought can be a sin, which is what the Bible actually says, then why are we so worried about whether somebody else can follow the will of God? You should be concerned about your relationship to God, not someone else's relationship to God. Because when you live by example and your life is a testament to your relationship to God, that leads other people. This is not about promoting your lifestyle in one way or the other, that I'm the greatest Christian and I don't sin, therefore people should be like me. People will see it and they'll ask you about your life and they'll follow your example.
That's how I've tried to live my life.
Me
People
too.
always get mad at me when I do ask a gay person, they get so mad.
Yeah.
And they're like, how could you talk to them? How could you have them in the home? I've got people at my job who are gay, straight, atheists, non-believers. Oh, I turned on gospel music.
Well, I think it's just so much easier to judge because, like I said, sexuality is personal.
Yeah.
And it affects people at the very core of who they are.
Right.
I mean, if you're a straight guy with a straight girl and you engage in sex outside of marriage, theoretically, that is a sin too. So unless you're married, you're committing a sin. And then ask yourself, how am I able to follow the will of God when I'm cheating? Yes, you're able to. Yes, you're able to. Relax.
Okay, we got a couple more questions. We got 10 minutes before we get to Jay.
Give it to me.
How do we follow George?
Oh, yeah. What's your Twitter?
I am on Instagram as the George Blake, and I'm on Twitter as Gluten-Free George, or you can just put in my name, George Blake, and up pops my picture. And I'm on Facebook as George Blake as well, and my picture pops up. I'd love to have some followers.
And we'll tweet out. We'll also tweet out George's stuff.
I'm trying to find a question that we haven't asked already. We got some people arguing in the comment section. Go, Jay.
Oh no, I was gonna say.
Somebody's saying, "What is a sin?" Because nothing is a sin to you.
No, that's not true. Actually, the Bible says the word sin actually, from the ancient Greek, actually means to miss the mark. It simply means you did not hit the mark of perfection or the mark that was supposedly correct. That's why we all do that all the time. I know that on a daily basis, if people wanted to use the word sin, that they could say, yes, George, you have sinned, and I would agree with them in the context of that word. But what I don't have is a sin consciousness. I don't go around beating myself up about what I've not done, and I don't go around beating other people about what they've not done. Instead, I am in a constant state of forgiveness. Because that is what God gives us, forgiveness. Every single day, all day, there is a river of forgiveness, and I'm swimming in it. That's why I don't have sin consciousness.
Somebody said, why are we embracing homosexuality? It's a sexual preference, but they're making it to be a lifestyle. I don't know.
It's not a lifestyle. You know what? I don't eat gay food. I don't drive a gay car. I don't. I don't go.
I do, on occasion.
I don't only associate with gay people or drink gay drinks. Like, there's no lifestyle. There's a lifestyle.
Lifestyles of the game.
I have a question. I want to ask my question before we run out of time. One of the things that we are either taught or hear a lot in the Black church is love the sin, hate the sin, love the sinner. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Like, can that really happen? I find that interesting, to say the least.
Well, the ironic thing about even the word hate in the Aramaic actually means to love less. It doesn't mean not to love, because the opposite of love is indifference, not hate, actually. Something you might want to check out, because it's true. But the thing is, I can see you as an individual, and you might be abusive to your wife or your children or your body, and I can still love you as a person.
Right.
And say, you know what, this is a creature, this is one of the creatures of God, this is God's creation. I love you despite your frailties, despite your faults.
Right.
I don't have to agree with the way that you do things, nor do I have to judge them at all, because it's not my position to judge.
Right.
Whose is?
Yeah, and that's the thing I always think. I always think about my kids. If they were to be gay, people are like, what if your kids were gay? I wouldn't want my kids to be gay, prisoners, gangsters. Like, there's a lot of things.
I would a white person.
Well, that's okay. But I wouldn't. That doesn't mean I'd not love them. Or I mean, they're my children. There's nothing my children can do that would make me love them any less. And I do stuff that makes my mom mad all the time when I was young and old. My kids do stuff that makes me mad, and I do stuff to them. But there's nothing that they could do that would make me say, get out of my house. And if they go to prison, if they commit a crime and go to prison, And they got to serve their time. But that doesn't mean I won't love them and visit them and do all that stuff because they're my children. I think, I don't know, that's just my personal thing. I don't want to talk about it.
I'll agree. I know that my nephew right now is going through a really difficult time and has recently been arrested on some serious charges. And I talked to my sister just yesterday, and we cried together about it. And she says, how do you feel about it? I said, I'm angry that he did these things. But I believe that God has the power in his life to make this into something beautiful that we don't understand.
Right.
So I can't judge him. I can be angry about the action. I can be angry about the behavior.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let that infiltrate my love for him as a person. And I think that's something that all of us need to do while we're going around pointing fingers at other people because of the lives that they live or the behaviors they engage in. That is the energy we should be spending on building the inner man. Where is your spiritual life when you are so busy judging and condemning other people? You can, let me tell you, you folks can say anything you want to me all day long. I do not have a spirit of condemnation. Do your best. Do your worst.
There is therefore no condemnation.
There is no condemnation. Say what you'd like. But I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I live my life. And I live a life where I try to give to other people, where I love other people and support other people. Even my comedy show, the whole goal of it for me is to put other comics on stage. If I don't get up that night and do a set or my set is reduced, I'm trying to give a platform to them. That's how we build each other. I'm not trying to take from anybody, but if you feel like saying that I'm gay makes you feel superior, then sit on your superior throne. Then enjoy it. But there's only one queen in here.
I got a question.
Okay. And after Jay's, we'll have time for one more, and then we got to stop.
With all this said about, the church and how you felt like you kind of were turned away and everything, have you ever looked at going into another faith? Or because a lot of the stuff you say, I hear almost a lot of like a Buddhist mentality.
Oh, Jay's Buddhist and he wants to join the Buddhist. No, come back to Christianity.
Be a Christian with a Buddhist twist. That's nice.
I've read about other religions. I respect other religions and other practices. I find that there's a thread that runs through all of them about spirituality that I follow.
Right.
I would not necessarily ascribe anymore to Buddhism or Hinduism or Scientology.
Please no Scientology.
I can't afford it. I would be a Scientologist, but I just can't afford it. It costs too much money. I've thought about pursuing other religions. For a very brief time, I practiced Ife, which is an African religion, which is about the worship of God and the aspects of God. And that was fulfilling on some level, but I'm finding that my daily life is spiritual, and I don't need the religiosity of other people, their rules, precepts, and tenets in order to feel like I'm doing the right thing. I know in my own heart, and I'm convicted when I know I'm following the right path or if I'm not following the right path.
I have maybe one or two more questions. I saw one that says, what makes someone gay, the act of sex or the attraction?
Ooh, big question. I love that I'm an expert. I talk about this with my students in my class because we're doing gender identity. And I follow this basic definition that sexuality and your sexual identity is really internal. It is not about what you do. Because I know men who declare themselves as gay without ever having sex with a man because of their attractions to men. But it wasn't just about the sex. Because all men, the ones who are out there that don't want to admit it, do a lot of things with other men that they don't think classifies them as gay. And that's fine. I classify myself that way because that's my relationship. I'm romantically involved with a man. I prefer to be romantically involved with a man. And that's the thing that fulfills me most. So I think it's more about your romantic inclinations more so than just the sex, just the act. Because you might have fooled around. I mean, come on, a lot of you humped your cousin when you were 11 years old. And if that's the case, then you're gay all of a sudden.
Right.
Well, you're not. You were just having an experience, and once again, your experience doesn't define you, but you can identify with an experience.
Okay, a couple more questions. Can we do rapid fire answer?
Okay.
We hear, reason people always harp on gayness in Black church, I think, is the scripture about being an abomination. Like, gayness is an abomination. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if that's the case, that's once again the peoples of the Old Testament. There are several other abominations that are listed there. Like if it was summertime and you're in Baltimore City and you're eating crabs and shrimp, that's actually an abomination. So you might want to look it up.
Right.
An abomination is, once again, from the book of Leviticus, which is for Levites, who are the priesthood of the Hebrew culture. It was so that they could be separated from those individuals. If you want to make a thing because it says abomination and it's a lot of letters and you think that makes it a big sin, it's really just a word with a lot of letters, and it's no greater than any other sin that's supposedly listed there. If you go to work on the Sabbath, that's an abomination. Look it up. Take a moment after this, Google abominations in the Bible, and you are going to go, oh crap, I've been committing abominations. Yes, you have. So is it about not committing them, or is it about understanding where we are in the world and our development and our growth?
Okay, here's the question I saw that I like. Do you think it's possible for a man to be gay at one time and straight at another time?
By practice, yes. Because some men, in efforts to, like me, having sex with girls and with women when I was older, I think in efforts to get rid of that, you might live a heterosexual lifestyle, for lack of a better term, even though you don't eat heterosexual food. And I certainly thought about marrying a woman. I know men who have married women, and they lived a straight life without having any gay behavior going on or any gay contact with people. So I think that's possible.
Right.
But I think inherently, you really always know at the core of your being whom you are, or if you're even bisexual, which people try to act like is confusion, but isn't confusion.
Right. Okay, guys, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We can have George back.
Yeah.
We can have George
Let's
back. There's a lot of questions that we didn't see. And if you want to watch this broadcast in full, it'll be up on my YouTube channel later. It'll be up on Periscope so you can read the comments for 24 hours. But follow me on YouTube, KevOnStage, and you can watch the broadcast there. I'll post it on YouTube. And right now, we are going to do
George's.
Oh, yeah, George
Instagram
on
and Twitter and everything.
My Instagram is TheGeorgeBlake. Facebook, I'm just George Blake. My Twitter is Gluten-Free George, which is GLUTNFREEGEORGE.
And Big Irish J is Big Irish J on
Big Irish J on everything. Follow George, hit him up, tell him you enjoy him on this.
There's still love, George. All right, we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes with Ask a White Guy with Big Irish J.